everybody. Today we're going to read The Little Red Riding Hood, retold and illustrated by Trina Schwartz-Hyman. And what is this part of the book called? The spine. Ev wants to read with us. Ev, what's this part called?
Front cover.
The front cover, and this is the
back cover.
Back cover. And what is this called? Does anybody remember? No, it's not the opening page. It's the
introduction?
No. The title page.
I'm dumb.
Stop. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Elizabeth who lived with her mother in a house on the edge of a village. She was loved by all who knew her, but she was especially dear to her grandmother, who loved her more than anything in the world. One day, the grandmother sewed a red velvet cloak with a hood and gave it to Elizabeth for her birthday. It looked so pretty, and she liked it so much that she would never wear anything else, and therefore everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. Early one morning, her mother said to her, "Come here, Red Riding Hood, and listen to me. I want you to take this loaf of fresh bread and some of this sweet butter and a bottle of something to drink to your grandmother. She's sick in bed, and they will do her a world of good. Go right away before the sun gets too hot. Promise me that you won't daydream or stray off the path. And don't run, or you will fall down and break the bottle. And then there will be no drink for grandmother. And when you get there, please don't forget your manners. Say good morning, please, and thank you nicely, without staring round about you or sucking your finger. Don't stay too long, or else you will tire grandmother. And when you have had a nice visit, come straight home." "Yes, Mama," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I promise I will do just as you tell me." Do you think she's going to do what her mom told her to do?
No.
You don't think so, Ev? Now, her grandmother lived in a cottage in the middle of the forest, a good half-hour's walk from the village. But Little Red Riding Hood knew the way, so she was not afraid to go by herself. When she had walked far enough into the woods to feel just a bit lonely, who should she meet but a sly and hungry old wolf? She had no idea what a wicked animal he was. However, so she was not at all frightened of him. "Good morning, Red Riding Hood," he said. "Good morning, Wolf," she answered politely. "Where are you off to so early in the day, my dear?" he asked. There's the wolf.
What's that mean?
"I'm going to grandmother's. She's sick in bed, you know." "Is that so?" he murmured. "And what have you got in your basket?" "A loaf of bread, some sweet butter, and a bottle for grandmother. Mama and I baked yesterday, so I'm taking a loaf to grandmother. It will do her a world of good." "Now, isn't that nice? And where does your grandmother live, Red Riding Hood?" "Oh, it's a good 15 minutes farther into the woods. Her house is the one by those 3 big oak trees, right next to the blackberry hedge, and there's a stream running by her garden. Surely you know the place," said Riding Hood. Why do you think he wants to know where her grandma lives?
So he can go to the house?
Maybe.
Actually, yeah.
The wolf thought to himself, "Aha, this tender little creature will be a plump morsel. A good dessert after the old woman. I must be clever about this so that I can make a good meal out of the two of them." So what's he going to do with Red Riding Hood and her grandma?
Eat him?
He wants to eat him. He walked along with Red Riding Hood for a while, making polite conversation. Then he said, "Just look at those beautiful wildflowers, Red Riding Hood. They are a sight even for my tired old eyes. For goodness sakes, why don't you relax a bit? Look at the world and see how lovely it is. Why, I don't believe you even hear the birds sing or enjoy the sunshine. You are just as solemn and well-behaved as if you were going to school. Everything else is so happy out here in the forest." Then Little Red Riding Hood looked away from the path, and when she saw sunlight dancing through the trees and the wildflowers and butterflies scattered throughout the ferns, she thought, "I'm sure that Grandmother would feel happier if I took her a bunch of flowers. They are a sight for tired old eyes. I know. And it's still quite early in the day. I'll have plenty of time to pick them. So she excused herself, said goodbye to the wolf, and wandered off among the trees to pick the flowers. Each time she picked one, she always saw another, even prettier one farther away. And so she left the path and went deeper and deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the wicked wolf went straight off to the grandmother's cottage and knocked softly at the door. Oh, I forgot to show you the picture. "Who's there?" called the grandmother from her bed. "It's me, Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf in a tiny voice. "I've brought you a loaf of bread, some sweet butter, and a bottle of something to drink. Let me in." "You have to lift the latch and let yourself in, dear," the grandmother called out. "I'm feeling too weak to get out of bed." So the wolf lifted the latch and opened the door. He ran straight to the bed without even saying good morning, and he ate up the poor old grandmother in one gulp. Then he put on a clean nightgown and shawl that were lying on the chair by the bedside, got into bed, and pulled the bed curtains close together. There he is, knocking at the door. In the meantime, Red Riding Hood had wandered here and there picking flowers until she had such an armful she could barely hold them all. Then she suddenly remembered her grandmother and the promise she had made to her mother. So she found her way back to the path and walked straight to the cottage. When she got there, she was amazed to find the door open, and she tiptoed in. She felt quite frightened, but she didn't know why. "What's wrong?" she thought. "I always like coming to Grandmother so much. Why should I feel so afraid? Can it be because she's sick?"
That's the big bad wolf.
"Good morning, Grandmother," she called, but there was no answer. Then she went quietly into the bedroom and pulled the bed curtains back. There laid her grandmother, but she had drawn her shawl down over her face and looked very odd. Red Riding Hood couldn't help but stare. "Grandmother, what big hairy ears you have grown," she said. "The better to hear you with, my dear." "Oh, Grandmother, your eyes are so shiny." "The better to see you with, my dear." "Your hands look so strange, Grandmother." "The better to catch you and hug you with, my dear." "Please, Grandmother, why do you have such big, sharp teeth?" "Those are to eat you up with, my dear." Oop, my phone fell. And the wolf said this as he sprang out of bed and ate up poor Little Red Riding Hood. Then, having finished his first good meal in many weeks, that wicked wolf went back to bed, pulled the covers up, and soon was snoring as loudly as you can imagine. So who did he eat so far?
I see.
He ate the grandma and he ate...
What about Riding Hood?
He ate both of them. Not long after that, a huntsman from the village to be passing by the grandmother's cottage. "By Jiminy," he thought, "the old lady is snoring much too loudly. Maybe I should stop in and see if there's anything the matter with her." So he went right into the house and up to the bed, where he saw the wolf fast asleep in the grandmother's nightgown and shawl, with a big fat stomach full to bursting. Right away the huntsman guessed what happened. "So here you are, old sinner," the huntsman said. "I've been looking for you all these years, and now this is where I find you?" He raised his gun to shoot, but then he wondered if the wicked old wolf might have swallowed the grandmother whole, and if perhaps there was a chance she might still be saved. So he took out his knife and quickly killed the wolf while he laid sleeping. Then he carefully cut open the wolf's stomach. At first cut, he saw the red velvet cloak and a few more. A little girl jumped out and cried, "Oh, thank you, I was very frightened. It was dark inside the wolf." Next, the grandmother climbed out, alive but hardly able to breathe from fright and exhaustion. They thanked the huntsman with all their hearts, and he was so glad to see them both alive and well that he hugged Little Red Riding Hood and shook Grandmother's hand over and over again. They were all quite happy. The huntsman took the pelt home to nail on his door, and Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother sat down together to eat fresh bread and sweet butter. After a while, the grandmother felt quite strong and healthy and began to clean up the mess that the wolf had made in the cottage.
Oh, hold on.